Hello and welcome to Maltbox, the non-chill filtered whisky blog. I'm Andy and this is Whisky Review number 93. And what I have for you today is a single grain whisky. It doesn't hail from Scotland, it doesn't hail from Ireland, it doesn't even hail from this continent. And what that whisky is this. That is Bain's single grain whisky from South Africa, from the James Sedgwick Distillery in Wellington. Now, this is a whisky that the whisky community turned me on to about 18 months ago. It is a whisky that actually has quite a few fans, to be honest. It's something that is surprisingly accessible as well. I, for example, picked this latest bottle up from Amazon. So the James Sedgwick Distillery is also home of Three Ships, which is a South African whisky you may have heard of. The distillery is headed up by Andy Watts, who's a really nice guy, one of the true gents in the whisky industry, and he's a big fan of cricket as well, which helps. The distillery itself actually forms part of the Distell group, of which Bunnahabhain and Deanston are also a part of as well, and Tobermory. So it falls under that group there. So this whisky is bottled at 40%. I believe it's got added colour, and I believe it's chill filtered. So I'm not going to focus too much on the colour, to be honest, but there you go. And again, I'll take this opportunity to apologise again for the temporary surroundings of this review. Unfortunately, due to the lockdown, etc. that we all currently find ourselves in, my builders cannot return to finish the work in the basement, so I am here in the dining room where I do my day job as well. So this is a whisky that is matured in a combination of ex-bourbon casks. And it spent its first 3 years in first fill ex-bourbon. And then the story behind it is that Andy removed the whisky from those casks and expected it to be there. You know, he expected it to be ready and meet his expectations, but it didn't. And rather than put that whisky back into those same casks, I mean, they'd already been used once. So a lot of that spirit influence from those a lot of the cask influence, should I say, had already been imparted into that spirit. So what he actually did was take a bit of a unique step and sort of bring in even more first fill ex-bourbon casks that had never been used before, just brought those in and then transferred the spirit back in to first fill ex-bourbon. So it's a double maturation in the same type of casks. And I've actually spoke to Andy, who's very kind enough to sort of reply to my message on Twitter, and he confirmed that the casks came from the same distillery in the States as well, which is pretty cool. So on the nose, I think the thing for me that I noticed straight away about this whisky, and the same goes for the first time that I ever tried it, this has a much more mature profile than a Scottish whisky, a Scottish grain whisky of equivalent age. So that first maturation period that I mentioned before was 3 years. Okay, so it was then transferred back into first fill ex-bourbon for another finishing period, another maturation period between 18 and 30 months. So realistically, I mean, this whisky is a 5-year-old whisky. So it's a 5-year-old grain whisky. And I think, realistically and ordinarily, particularly I feel for Scottish grain whiskies, they do tend to struggle at that kind of youthfulness. You do tend to find a lot of grain whiskies that are sold of Scottish distilleries tend to be 10, 12 years and up, because it does have quite a prickly profile. It's a little bit rough around the edges. However, this has been produced using purely, no other grains used, 100% South African yellow maize. So on the nose, going back to the nose, tropical fruit, spice, cinnamon buns, which goes back to the spice note. Let's move the bottle, apologies. Vanilla. And apricots, weirdly. It does get a little bit almost drier on the nose the more you stick your nose in there. It becomes quite cereally at the end, just before you pull your nose out. But again, it certainly carries, particularly on the nose, a much more mature profile than an equivalent Scottish grain whisky of the same age. So on the palate, the mouthfeel, quite good. There's a really, really nice sort of like honey nut, crunchy nut, cornflake note. Again, the vanilla, it's sweet, it's spicy, it's very creamy as well towards the finish. Going into the finish, it's actually getting a bit creamy. And again, I'll give you that cinnamon's there as well. And do you know what? You can probably say that you can tell it's made with maize, to be fair, and corn compared to, you know, like wheat, etc., or malted barley. It's quite sweet, but again, I find with this whiskey that the spice, the cereal notes, and those fruit notes as well really do sort of like balance it out. It's very, very well balanced. And I think for me, the first fill bourbon influence is quite strong, and I think that, you know, obviously that's exactly what Andy was after. That's why he did it twice. You know, that vanilla's in there, the creaminess is in there, the spice is in there. You have the advantage in warmer climes of that maturation effectively speeding up. So you will find that a whiskey matured in a warmer country matures faster. You suffer a heavier loss to the angel share. I think it's circa about 5%, I think, compared to maybe like 1-2% in Scotland for this sort of period that we're looking at. So you know, you lose a lot more spirit, but your whiskey is a lot more rounded, it's a lot more mature, it reaches maturity a lot faster. And this is a really nice example, not just of a grain whiskey, but of a world whiskey. And these guys are making really, really nice spirit, and they're doing it their own way. And in this particular instance, using South African ingredients as well, which is fantastic. It really is. You know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around at the minute about, I'm not going to say the T word, alright, well, terroir, and, you know, provenance, etc. And, I mean, this retails for about 30 quid. Amazon are selling it at the minute in the UK for 24, so 23.99. I would recommend you pick one up, to be honest, for that price, particularly, and generally. And for that, you know, you're getting a really nice grain whiskey, first fill ex-bourbon, which is right up my street, as I've said several times on other reviews, because I love ex-bourbon maturation. And you know what, I mean, one of my favourite things to do with this, apart from drinking it straight, it goes really, really well in a highball, because I love a highball. We've had lovely weather during this lockdown so far, touch wood, here in Northern England, and you know, I've basically, this is actually my second bottle of this. I've got a third one arriving tomorrow. And this is how far I've gone through it already in the last week or so. So yeah, on that note, really, really great whiskey. Really do recommend you try it. It's very affordable, very accessible, and they've knocked it out of the park. You know, for what it is, it's a great little whiskey. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.